hello, and welcome to TBD, the Professional Wrestling Podcast. My name is Michael Gay, known also as MG, and alongside me is my tag team partner, Derek. We like to affectionately call him DSZ. Derek, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Mike. How are you doing?
Doing pretty good. Now, for those of you that may or may not have listened to our previous podcast before, you may be wondering why. Why are we doing this? Why are we giving this a try? For those of you that maybe caught the last podcast, you may be wondering what the crap took you so long to do another one. Well, we're doing a reboot. Long story short on my end, time and schedule happened, but it's time to, with a new year, we're going to give this another try. So, Derek, tell me, what can people expect from this podcast as we try to reboot it?
Well, what people can expect is, first and foremost, our bi-weekly podcast that we plan on doing. Hopefully it'll be uploaded to our YouTube channel by Friday. That's the goal. If not Friday, probably the Saturday after. The last week of every month is going to be dedicated to our predictions for whatever pay-per-views going on. And me personally, I am hoping to have the weekly news updates on the podcast there around Monday of every week.
All right. So what makes this podcast different from others? And I mean, there's a ton of pro wrestling podcasts out there. It's essentially, Derek and I come from two different backgrounds as far as we kind of ascribe to the philosophy, and we've often heard it said that usually the first 10 years of wrestling that you're exposed to is the style of wrestling, or the wrestling that kind of you draw closest to. I've been a fan of pro wrestling since about 1990. I started out watching All-American Wrestling, watching Primetime Wrestling before Monday Night Raw came out. I was a huge WCW fan. I couldn't get enough of Main Event Wrestling Worldwide, all of that stuff. WCW Saturday Night was a regular part of my repertoire. So even though I am a fan of the older style of wrestling and some of the older stars, I really enjoy what's going on. And by no means does that mean I think everything that WCW did was good. In fact, I now question some of my favorites and what was going on. But I bring a little bit of perspective from the old school. And Derek is probably one of the more what you'd call a smart mark or an educated fan from the newer generation. So, Derek, give him a little background.
All right, so I started watching wrestling around 2005, 2006. The earliest memory that I can remember is Jeff Hardy getting blown up by pyrotechnics and that whole angle. I remember the years of John Cena versus Orton versus John Cena versus Orton. And the kendo stick, well, John Cena was tied to the ring pole. I also remember the good old days of TNA with Beer Money Incorporated and Jeff Jarrett and AJ Styles all being there. And even once New Japan started becoming a big deal, I started watching them quite a bit as well. I've been doing my research into some of the old WCW stuff, and I go, man, this is something.
And that's being kind.
In the words of Conrad Thompson, who booked this? But we all know it was Eric Bischoff, and he was just trying to spend money.
No, I think it's fairly accurate. So, like everybody, I think that, we're going to be covering all elite wrestling and kind of our take on it from a couple different perspectives. And so what we're going to try to do this time that was a little different from the last time around is kind of, have actual segments and whatnot and just kind of an approach to it. So first thing we're going to do, our topic is all elite wrestling. First thing we're going to do is just talk about what we do know so far. So the rumors are true. All Elite Wrestling is happening. It's an actual wrestling organization. It's an actual company. It is owned by the Khan family. The Khan family are also the owners of the Jacksonville Jaguars. They are funding this. They are the owners. Now, it's estimated that the Khan family is valued at about $6.3 billion through different business ventures and the Jacksonville Jaguars. It should be noted that that's more money than Vince McMahon is worth, so they are putting in their own money. Cody Rhodes and the Young Bucks, Nick and Matt Jackson, are going to be executive vice presidents. Cody is going to be in charge of, he's going to be the executive producer for both AEW events as well as their arena shows. He's going to be the executive producer. He's also going to be overseeing the singles talent in regards to talent relations. Matt and Nick Jackson are going to be, as of right now, they are the booking team, but they are going to be overseeing the creative as well as the tag teams from a talent relations perspective. You also have Brandy Rhodes as the chief brand officer, or as she likes to put it, the chief brandy officer, which makes her sound like an alcohol enthusiast. I'm kidding. So they're going to be kind of the front and center, but the president and who's running the company will be Tony Khan. He is the brother of the owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars. He will be the president of the company. So Cody and Matt and Nick Jackson are going to be part of the executive team. So there was a meeting during Wrestle Kingdom weekend in which, or Wrestle Kingdom week, in which Ring of Honor, New Japan, and All Elite Wrestling had their executives together to figure out how partnerships were going to work. And in the end, it was determined that Ring of Honor and New Japan are going to continue their partnership with All Elite looking on the outside. Now, since then, All Elite did form a partnership with OWE, I believe it was. A small, well, not so small, but kind of like, it's equivalent to kind of like what NXT is here. OWE is in regards over in Japan. So they did have a partnership with them as well. As far as talent that has been confirmed as signed so far, you have Cody, Brandy. Oh, and also it should be mentioned that Brandy is going to be overseeing the women's division, which at the rally was announced that it is going to be a fairly big, fairly important division, as well as pay equity, which got quite an amount of cheers on that. But as far as people that have signed, so actually right now, Derek, I'm throwing it over to you. What do you think about this ownership structure? And question for you, what do you think about Cody, Nick, and Matt being both talent and on the booking committee? Because that was part of the thing with WCW, was when you would have Ric Flair be the booker or you had Kevin Nash being the booker, there was always that worry about looking out for personal interests. What's your take on that?
As far as the booking standpoint for the Young Bucks and Cody, I don't think it's going to be as much of a problem. I do know that both of those entities, per se, have been dealing with injuries for the past year. And it's going to give them some time to actually rest and nurse those while focusing on the business aspects. I also think they're going to take more of a part-time role and kind of take that final boss approach where it's like, we're the ones you've got to beat if you want to be the tag team champions, which I think will overall improve their product because they're such large names. As far as the ownership structure goes, I think it's brilliant that they got the Khan family involved. And it seems like the Khans are going to be very, very passionate about this wrestling product in general. I'm really glad that they're giving the women the equal pay. I know that was a big deal, especially when you look at a lot of WWE's finances. Like, the men get paid a ridiculous amount, and the women don't even get paid half as much.
And lately, the women are carrying the WWE, their
Becky
matches.
Lynch and Charlotte just tearing it up. So that's really cool. And another thing I really liked is when they announced that they were doing the second pay-per-view in Jacksonville. They
Smart
announced
idea.
that they were going to be donating some of the gate proceeds to help victims of gun violence.
Yeah, that's definitely huge. And they announced their first event, All In, which now gives me an excuse for a Vegas weekend on May 25th. I think it's at the MGM Grand.
Yeah, Double or Nothing.
Double or Nothing. It's going to be All In 2. They've officially announced it, and that's supposedly the launch of All Elite Wrestling. So as far as talent that's been confirmed, we have Cody, Brandy, we have the Young Bucks, Hangman Page is confirmed, and apparently right out the bat, it looks like we're going to have a feud with Hangman Page and Pac, or Pac, however you pronounce that.
I think they pronounce it Pac.
Pac, formerly known as Neville, is what I liked. The artist formerly known as Neville. There was apparently a feud that just already was started at the rally. Joey Janela and I didn't write down her name. Who's Joey Janela's manager? We'll remember it. But will
It'll
Joey
come to
Janela and
us, like in the middle of the podcast, and I'll just shout it over Mike at some point.
Britt Baker was signed. SoCal Uncensored, which was pretty much a formality. They were pretty much the first ones confirmed after Cody, Brandy, and the Young Bucks. The one that I think was a really good signing as far as for the future was MJF out of Major League Wrestling. He was brought in and quickly tried to establish the whole heel presence. I feel like right now, though, he's kind of a generic Miz.
He not even a generic Miz. I'd say a discount EC3.
Nice, discount EC3,
Like,
okay.
He's got that persona going on where he's like, I'm arrogant, I'm a snob, kind of like EC3 did back in Impact, but he just doesn't do it quite as well. So I think what they should do with him is have him lose all of his money, per se, and have him be this broken rich, just kind of like, well, I used to be better than all of you kind of feel. I think that would be an interesting way to go with it.
That's
and then
awesome.
I do have a question for you, Mike, on terms of Britt Baker. You do know that she is in a relationship with Adam Cole.
Oh,
so
yeah,
how do you
that's
think
right.
that's going to affect his push in NXT?
See, I could see it going both ways because Adam Cole's drawn a lot of fan interest. And depending on when their contract is up, you know, I could see them giving him a push to entice him to stay because heaven knows it won't, you know, well, I mean, they will have the money, I guess. Or I could see it where they're just going to let him go because they think that NXT is a superstar factory, which it is if they knew how to use him properly. Like, I would love to see what would happen if NXT was the feeder for All Elite, but now I'm just fantasy booking. And the big get was Chris Jericho, what I thought was going to be the lifetime free agent, actually is committing to All Elite Wrestling. Now, he was involved from the beginning. There were rumors that he was involved in it, but I think, you know, how big, you know, and this has been a question I've heard a lot, but how big do you think the Jericho signing is?
Jericho's definitely not as big of a name as like Hulk Hogan or Macho Man for that regard if we're going back to WCW. And there's a lot of parallels here. I mean, you've got a lot of former WWE talent jumping ship to go to AEW. However, I would say that from like a wrestler's talent perspective, Jericho's still got it. Like, he's still an amazing performer. He's still top notch. And he will definitely give a much needed boost to the company, especially while they're looking for that TV deal. And not only that, but if he and Pac are successful in this company, it'll definitely show it as being that second place to go other than WWE and bring him up as a true competitor. And I guess you can already see that sort of threat looming with their barring of AEW t-shirts at SmackDown.
That was incredible. I couldn't believe they did that.
But it just shows that they're feeling actually threatened by this. And you've got to imagine there's so many disillusioned superstars who can make the jump. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if within the next year, you know, Ty Dillinger, Zack Ryder, or even possibly like a Dolph Ziggler end up getting their release and jumping ship over to AEW.
You know who I want to go to AEW? Chad Gable. I think Chad Gable would have a nice mid-card career, but be like a legitimate mid-carder. Mm-hmm. Like, he'd hover around and you'd wonder maybe he gets the occasional world title shot. But that kid is fun to watch. One might say glorious.
A couple of names I do think they should definitely bring in. Pentagon Jr. and Phoenix.
Oh, that'd be amazing.
I believe they should try to bring in Johnny Impact and Brian Cage. Joe Hendry from over in Britain. One of my favorite British wrestlers.
I heard that he's your favorite wrestler's favorite wrestler.
Yeah, so did I. Weird that, yeah. A couple of people for the women's division, I think they should target Kaylee Ray and Bea Priestley. Because if they get Priestley or even Will Ospreay, that might get their chances up to grabbing the other one because they're a couple, right? I could see Kota Ibushi making the jump at some point. And they might even try to outbid WWE for Kushida now that he's a free agent as well.
Yeah, like Kushida has been linked with the WWE for quite some time, so I wonder if they could win that war. Now, as far as a TV deal yet, there's no TV deal, but I guess that they did such a good job with All In that they're trying to negotiate a deal, and there's a lot of rumors out there that Derek can get into, but as of right now, there's no TV commitment. But I was speaking to the legitimacy thing you were saying. I think having somebody like the Khan family behind them going, they can look and say we have multi-billionaires backing us, like they came to play. As far as right now, it looks like I said, with the Ring of Honor and New Japan alliance, AEW is going to be on the outside looking in. Now, as far as like the best free agents out there, Kenny Omega announced that at the end of January, when his contract is up, he's not going to re-sign with New Japan, and so he's out there. So tell me, what do you think? Like, if you had to take a guess, Kenny Omega's out on the market. You know that we've already heard. The WWE's made an offer. If you were Kenny Omega, who would you choose and why?
That's a difficult question. We do hear that, he's received this fantastic offer from WWE, according to Meltzer.
Uncle Dave.
But as far as like the situation goes, if he's getting such fantastic money offer from WWE, I would consider that, not to mention the potential WrestleMania moments with guys like AJ Styles, Finn Balor, even reforming the club with Doc Gallows and Carl Anderson, or even just getting them all together in one giant stable. Like, you could even throw him in there as the new leader of Undisputed Era if they decide to let Adam Cole go for whatever reason. But on the other hand, he might be getting paid less at AEW, possibly more, who knows, with the kind of financial backing that they're getting. But he'd be able to still be with the elite, his boys, the Young Bucks, Cody, Hangman. However, I do feel like there'd be that sense of bias there as far as trying to push him to be the world champion because they're all friends. So I believe if he wants the best career choice as far as rebuilding, well, not rebuilding, but building up his name more than it already is, WWE would be the way to go for him.
Push him into the
his
mainstream.
Contract, I haven't heard the exact date it's up. I don't know whether it's January 31st or like towards the end of January. But I wouldn't be surprised as if we hear silence until the Rumble, and if he debuts at the Rumble. If he doesn't debut at the Rumble, my hunch says he goes to AEW.
Yeah, the Rumble would be the place to debut him. I mean, if they could figure out a way to make that happen. Now, question, if AEW, let's say that Omega chose AEW, do you think that New Japan, because, they book well in advance, and obviously Omega was the cornerstone one of the cornerstones for them. If Omega goes with AEW, do you see New Japan maybe starting to steer towards a partnership with AEW?
No, I don't see them doing that. And now that the offer's kind of off the table, I don't see AEW wanting to do that. It's kind of one of those things where I'd be like, oh, you didn't want to partner with us to begin with. Why should we let you partner with us now? I do like what you said a couple days ago as far as AEW joining up with the NWA and stuff. I think that would be really interesting to see.
Just because I heard the Rhodes name and I thought, why not?
I also think that as far as NJPW is concerned, them and Ring of Honor are going to be fine without Omega and the Young Bucks and Cody. Sure, they were a big help, but with the way they develop their talents and bring them up and everything like that, I don't think they have any to worry. I mean, the Bullet Club's still going strong. You've got Jay White, the Gorillas of Destiny, and now Chase Owens and Yujiro Takahashi rejoining them, making that stable even stronger, not to mention Los Ingobernables and Chaos. They've got a pool of talent to pull from, so it shouldn't be too much of a stretch to see them doing fine.
I think that speaks to the health of them. Like you said, New Japan, they just have the new crop that they need to start pushing. And, I mean, honestly, Kenny Omega wasn't a household name even 2-3 years ago, and now out of nowhere. So I like that. If you had to take a guess, because I know that there was and I'm not trying to cut into your rumors, I promise, but TV deal, who do you think, who would you want them to sign with? I'll let you talk about the rumors of who it would be, but let's say that you had your choice of where you could broadcast. Would you do solely online? Would you pick a TV, would you pick a certain TV network? What would you do if you were in charge of this whole television organization?
I would start by running a weekly TV show on Tuesday, and I know SmackDown's on Tuesday, but here's why. Hear me out. SmackDown's usually the lower rated of the two wrestling shows, right? No matter how you look at it, it's always going to be viewed as a B show. So if you're competing competitively with the B show, that's a good sign right off the bat. I would have them do it on Tuesday nights around the same time as SmackDown. But I would probably, if I had to pick a TV network, once SmackDown goes to Fox, I'd say put them on USA.
I like him as the new tenants. Like, thanks. Just give us the keys.
If they continue doing well against SmackDown, I would then start considering maybe a move to TBS or TNT, like the rumors are going about, and moving them to Monday nights to see if they can compete there. Because if they can compete there, it might just be the kick in the butt they need in order to get wrestling back to where it should be.
Yeah, I think that definitely. It's one of those things where if AEW succeeds, everybody wins on that one because it pushed. I mean, even Bruce Pritchard admitted that WCW challenged them and said we have to get better. So I like that. All right, well that concludes what we know so far. Now, this is being recorded on a Wednesday night, so who knows? By the time you listen to this on Friday, there could be multiple names added and more information. But as of right now, that's what we know about All Elite Wrestling.
If we do gain any extra information, we will be sure to let you know as soon as we can. Like I said, I plan on doing that news update by Monday and having it up then. However, if there's any breaking news, like a huge signing such as a Kenny Omega or a Pentagon, I'll be sure to let you know the day of.
All right, so now that we know what we know about it, there have been rumors flying like crazy. So now I'm going to turn it over to DSC, who will be telling us the rumors that are out there regarding All Elite Wrestling. Derek?
As far as All Elite Wrestling is concerned, with the rumors, the big one is the TV deal. The big rumor around the block is that they're currently negotiations are with TNT and TBS, which, as some of you may know, is the former home of WCW. It would definitely be interesting to see them hop ship over there and really, really kind of be like, look, we're a threat, and make it very clear to the WWE that they are. Some other rumors that are going around is the threat to WWE. Like I said, they did ban AEW t-shirts from SmackDown, which was kind of a shock to me when I heard it, because I'm like, they're not even running their first show yet and you're already banning the t-shirts from the arena. The only other time I've heard of the t-shirts getting banned from the arena was the old CM Punk stuff. So that definitely came as a shock. The wildest rumor that I've heard is that CM Punk might be joining AEW, which would explain the t-shirt thing if he does. But if you add CM Punk to the mix, you've got to imagine that makes you a credible threat right off the bat. What do you think, Mike?
I don't know what I would do if CM Punk joined. Like, that would be incredible. I think that, I don't know, to get him, I was wondering if that was going to happen. I totally was trying to predict a CM Punk run-in at All In. I don't know, but I wouldn't put it past him. I didn't think Jericho was going to commit to them, and sure enough, he actually locked down. So
I had made a joke with one of my friends that I'm going to the Rumble with. We went to go have some Raising Cane's the other day. Not sponsored. So we went over there to have some lunch, and we were talking about it, and I was just like, wouldn't it be funny if Pac signed up with AEW? And he's like, yeah, but that's not going to happen. And then here we are, suddenly he's signed as well. And it's like I said earlier, it just really looks like it's going to be the new challenger to WWE, yet another place for their talent to go once they've been disenfranchised, and give them the voice that they need to create that character, personality, and the drive they need to actually compete.
yeah, but I don't know if Pac was a good signing. I mean, he wasn't comfortable doing the job to Enzo Amore. And if you cannot drop the belt to Enzo Amore and feel good about yourself, then you're not a team player. I mean, he's a certified G and a bona fide stud, and
he's also fired.
Yeah, and but I don't know if you can't teach that though. You can't teach that. So I don't know. Neville's not a team player. If he wouldn't drop it to Enzo, I don't see anybody he'd drop it to.
That would be like saying that Bret Hart should have dropped the WCW championship to who's a good example? The Hurricane. or somebody like that. Just something completely bizarre that makes no sense. And yet they did it, and Neville was like, I'm out, and they're like, no, you're not, and they held his contract in limbo for like ever, which I mean is ridiculous enough in the first place. It's like, seriously, he wants to leave, just let the guy go. Why are you holding him hostage like this?
And what's funny is it almost like you have to wonder if WWE would have just released him, would he have signed with an organization and not have been available for AEW?
No, I think if anything, he probably would have signed with New Japan for like a 1-year deal.
Oh, he would have been. Oh, man. I could go for some Neville Okada matches, maybe. I know. Excuse me for a second.
Neville Naito.
Oh, my gosh. That'd be amazing. I never thought I'd like New Japan after the old school WCW partnership with All Japan. But here I am, watching Wrestle Kingdom. What have I become? An educated fan, that's what. All right, so what other rumors do we have? Have you heard? Now, just so you know, this is, the stuff that we get is a combination from a bunch of sites. I know if you talk to people like Mark Cuban, they talk about how Bleacher Report and all those compilation websites are the devil. But we just want to try to bring it all together and chime in. So what else have you heard, Derek?
I haven't really heard that much else in regards to AEW. A lot of what I was hearing was pretty much confirmed at the press conference the other night, which, you know, I mean, I was right, so there's that.
Yeah, you got that going for us.
You've also got to take a look at how this is going to affect the wrestling landscape as a whole. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a partnership with Major League Wrestling now that they've got Conrad Thompson on board, because I'm pretty sure he could work out a partnership there. And then you add in the NWA, you'd have the perfect little cluster there. But as far as, like I said, with New Japan and Ring of Honor, I think they're going to be fine. I wouldn't be surprised if they're already starting to plan for that future. As far as like their young lions are concerned, like Tohanare, he's starting to become a big deal over in New Japan.
And Juice Robinson seems like he's getting a huge push.
Oh yeah, Juice Robinson's amazing. Another ex-WWE guy who just was kind of left out to dry. Fun fact, he was in NXT. They offered him to come over to New Japan as like a star right off the bat, and he wanted to go through their Young Lions program. And that's what he did. So he's worked his way completely up in New Japan.
Seriously, I don't know, like I would, but you know, oh, and unless we forget in WWE news, John Cena came back.
Joy.
He doesn't want to be left out of WrestleMania. I'm sorry, I don't know why. I think I'm obligated to mention John Cena news. I think that's just a natural wrestling fan thing.
Does John Cena win the belt? Yes.
Just let him beat Flair's record and call it a day.
Let him retire after that, because I'm sick of seeing that stupid dragon punch that he does.
It's the sixth move of doom. No, I think that, I don't know, like, Derek, you brought up a question earlier, and I'll let you ask it, but you had brought up a question once AEW was a thing, and it was originally going to be the topic of this, but then all of a sudden everything blew up. So what was the question that you had posed about All Elite Wrestling?
Whether it would become the next WCW.
So I was going to ask you about this because I was thinking about it. Do you mean will it be the next WCW as in a legitimate competitor to to the WWE, or as WCW as in the, hey, we're going to try to take these guys on and then eventually lose due to poor management?
I think with Cody's insight as a booker and his understanding of the wrestling business, as long as their will and determination that they've shown in really wanting to change the wrestling landscape, I feel like they could be a competitor with WWE to the point where WCW couldn't. Because with WCW, you had all the egos implode on one another, but I don't think we're going to see that there. I don't see them hiring people who would be toxic to the environment. I see them legitimately going out being like, who's the best talent? Who's going to be best for the fans? Because they understand it's what the fans want. Like they said at the press conference, they're not going to tell us who to cheer. They're not going to tell us how to boo. They're going to let us be fans. And that's something that the WWE doesn't do. You get superstars forced down our throat all the time, like Roman Reigns and John Cena, where we're like, what if I want to boo them? And then you're going to drown out my boos by turning the volume down on it in your production booth? Really? Like...
But Derek, the McMahon And the McMahons and Triple H promised that we're the new authority now.
Oh, we're the new authority. That's why John Cena's back.
I personally requested John Cena to come back and for AJ Styles to punch Vince McMahon.
Oh, that's why Sasha Banks is in the title match at the Rumble.
That was also my doing. I was told I was the authority and I abused it. However, they would not take advantage of a Ric Flair robe on a pole match.
That's why Brock Lesnar hasn't dropped the title yet.
I was just like, I need to see the Universal title once every 8 months, and then I'm good.
That's why Shane McMahon and The Miz are tag team partners going after the tag team championship.
Shades of Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard. I mean, look it up.
The only good decision they've made so far is Becky Lynch being the #1 contender for Asuka's title.
Yeah, I feel kind of dirty talking about WWE in this, but I like what you said about the whole idea of they won't tell you who to cheer and who to boo. You know what's funny is I started listening to Vince Russo's podcast, and I know say what you will about Vince Russo, but one thing that he talked about was the idea of imposing reality, of letting the fans react how they were going to react. You don't know what's going to happen, and that's what keeps people hooked. And while I hope that they don't do all the stupid gimmicks that Russo did and the behind-the-scenes stuff. I do like...
Put your mom on a forklift. Whoa.
You know what? We all were hoping Judy Bagwell would be okay. But, oh my gosh. Like, even just saying that phrase and knowing that that was a legitimate thing, we're like, why are they elevating her?
What would be funny is stacking 3 cages on top of each other.
Hey, it worked in Ready to Rumble. No, but I like that like who to cheer and who to boo, because, I mean, I don't know, like I loved, and I know it sounds bad, but going back to old school, when it was Rock and Hogan, and when they wrestled at WrestleMania, and Hogan was supposed to be the bad guy, but halfway through the crowd just started cheering for Hogan, and they just let it happen. And they let it happen, and it ended up becoming this epic matchup between The Rock and Hogan. Now, Hogan's moveset had been long gone, but they didn't, like, Hogan didn't cheat. It wasn't that Hogan had to, like, intentionally become a heel. It was they loved them both, and that was okay. They loved them both, and it was like, holy crap, 2 wrestlers that we love fighting? Nothing wrong with that. So, do you see more? So then, Derek, tell me, do you see more long-term success with with AEW than WCW?
No, I don't see long-term success with WCW. It's already dead. No, I do see more long-term success for AEW. I think that they're going to be more successful than TNA could. I think they're going to be more successful than New Japan in the long run, which is saying something. I think New Japan's still going to have its niche, but as far as your wrestling fan, AEW is going to be the way to go. Especially the disenfranchised wrestling fans who are going, man, I didn't want to see Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar 5 times over the summer, and what the heck was Mania this year? Like, I feel like they can go over to AEW, take a look at it, and be like, there's some great talent here. They're not afraid to do unique things. I mean, take a look at All In. I mean, a lot of nifty things happen there, especially with the Joey Ryan segment. I thought that was hilarious, but Jim Cornette didn't. So, I mean, his opinion's the only one that really matters.
You know what I was impressed by, and I was wondering what your thoughts were on this. What impressed me was, what I loved about All In was they focused completely on wrestling. I mean, the entrances were elaborate, yes, and all of that, but it was like they didn't make the wrestling show about like the cheap gimmicks. It was like you could go to YouTube or you could subscribe, and so they did it as like a supplement. So if you were watching Being the Elite, if you were watching these shows, it was like the culmination happened at the wrestling event. In your opinion, do you think, like, you know, and we can talk about technology and generations, but do you think that that's going to be kind of the hidden key? Because one thing we keep mentioning is how well the Bucks and how well Cody uses social media, how well they leverage it to kind of supplement, like when the Bucks submitted their letter to the WWE on Being the Elite, talking about the wasted tag team division, and then all of a sudden this comes up. Do you think that format can lead to long-term success?
I think in doses. So I still think they should have segments on the show that focus on the characters a little bit. Mind you, not like backstage interview every single time, but more of like the old Attitude Era kind of character development, where they'd come out to the ring and start jabbing off to the fans, or Stone Cold trying to make his way into the Rumble only to get jumped in the women's restroom. That sort of stuff. More unique backstage segments where it develops the character, but it also pushes forth the show. Something WWE hasn't done in a while because it feels like all of their segments lead to nothing. But on top of that, they can enhance it using YouTube. Say, someone like a Zack Ryder, right?
Woo, woo, woo.
If they were to come in, use that as a platform to build the character even more and show what's going on backstage in their lives, allowing us to form that personal connection. Because that's how Zack Ryder ended up getting over for a while, was he built a personal connection with the WWE Universe, and they supported him, only for him to get so royally buried that he doesn't even show up on Raw for an entire year.
And see, that's the thing. It was like the WWE kind of stumbled on something and didn't follow up with it, because when Zack Ryder mentioned he hadn't been on WWE for a year, like that drew some traction. There was some traction there, and it was like, you know, I would have loved to see a social media campaign like Let Ryder Wrestle or Ryder on Raw or something. They could have leveraged it, but they just kind of let it fade out, and it was like, oh, funny story. Zack Ryder said he's never been on Raw in a year.
Funny story. You know who did respond to Zack Ryder's Twitter post?
Who?
The Young Bucks and Cody.
That's amazing. They're like, dude, we put you on a show. But I like what you're saying, like build that character where it's not, you know, like I can't. This is the one thing that I liked about WCW, and I will admit, back in the Attitude Era and back in the day, WCW had the mid-card and the undercard. Because you're watching, you know, Malenko, Benoit, Guerrero, Jericho, Rey Mysterio. Like, they had all the mid-card talent. But then the main event, it was The Rock, Stone Cold, you know. I mean, the WWE owned the main event. But it was like, I loved it when WCW Nitro would start with a match. Like, all right, let's get the action going. And, you know, I'm watching Rey Mysterio versus Eddie Guerrero. Or even like on the first Nitro where it was Brian Pillman versus Jushin Thunder Liger, like right out the bat. I love that. I'm tired of the 30-minute monologues to start out Raw.
I'm a McMahon, look at me. And then someone comes out and says, well, you suck at being a McMahon. And they're like, cool, now you're in a tag team match, brother.
And then I love how you're always guaranteed that one match will start right now.
Right? I just wanted them to be like, and that match will start next week to open the show.
That match will start right after I make my next 4 points. What? No, I agree. I like what you're saying about the character development, because I'll admit I really liked how All In, like there were video montages and stuff like that, but I liked that it was just, okay, let's show you how we got to this point.
And it doesn't take it too seriously. Like, you had Marty Scurll and the Invisible Talking Hands. Like...
I watched the whole... Because I didn't know about the Joey Ryan backstory, and so as I'm watching this happen, I'm like, okay, I'm filled in and slightly disturbed, but really entertained. Like, all rolled into one.
During the press conference, someone shouted something about Hangman Page's nether region to him, and he's like, "You're darn right I do."
Well, and then the thing I did like about MJF, like I know he's trying, but he like just seemed unfiltered. Like he was just kind of going.
The way he went at Conrad.
Oh my gosh!
Jeez. And then when he's like, "Do you like gum? Do you like the sugary gum? Here, hold this for me." And he stuck it to his forehead. I was like, "Oh."
Oh my gosh! Oh, and I should have mentioned in the facts, and this is for podcast nerds. StarCast will be happening again. I absolutely love StarCast. I'm not going to lie. I bought it on Fight, and I still rewatch some of those segments. I'm not going to lie. I'm excited for StarCast.
DSC for StarCast.
Dude, let's get DS. Okay, so what we're going to do right now is we're going to introduce you. We're going to take a quick break to introduce you to a campaign we're going to start this year. Ladies and gentlemen, my humble co-host, DSZ, just the most humble person that you could meet, has a dream of working in the wrestling business, and so we need to get him in the door. And so we're going to launch a campaign to get him on the creative team. Now, yes, he could take the Bruce Pritchard route, and he could, start out small and work his way up, and he's willing to do it. But we're going to take the Vince Russo route. We're just going to let the creativity get him the job.
The creativity of telling WWE how bad their product is and how they need to get their heads out of their butts, otherwise they're going to get their butts kicked by AEW. And hey, AEW, if you want to, reach out to me even for like a simple announcing role or help you book or just chill out there as one of your workers, as long as you pay for airfare, I'm down.
Now, you can't beat that offer, and so we would like it if you helped us out. Now, there are different ways to name it. I'm personally a big fan of Booker D. For those of you that are wrestling fans, you should get that, and if you don't, just press stop right now and subscribe. I'm just kidding, don't unsubscribe. But let's make this happen, people. If you need, right now in this time, in this tumultuous time in America, we need a cause we can believe in. We need a man we can believe in.
We need a leader.
We need a leader. And I'm just going to tell you right now, the creative that is flowing out of this man right now, like, I would do the job. I would do the favor. I'd do the job. I would totally do the job if he booked me to do that.
Because you're a flare mark.
That's right. The heel makes the face look good. But I personally think that between Ring of Honor, who actually offered a lot of money. Who was it that they signed? The big free agent that they signed. They outbid the WWE for him. Why is his name escaping me? He was from Ring of Honor. No, he was from New Japan, I believe, and they signed him. But Ring of Honor is ready to spend some money. They're partnering with New Japan. AEW's got some backing WWE. I feel like we're going to see what WCW and Impact should have been to WWE, because both had decent starts. Like, I was just done listening to the Vince Russo TNA podcast, and I remember watching. The Impact had great natural athletes that they had. I mean, that's when they had Samoa Joe when he was younger. They had AJ Styles. Christopher Daniels, the Fallen Angel. I remember, like, now he's a joke, but Ron Killings was amazing in TNA. And I mean, I think
where Xavier Woods got to start.
TNA.
Consequences Creed.
Yeah, and I love it. And I even think of, like, I still remember Elix Skipper doing the tightrope across the cage and just doing a Hurricane Rana off the cage. I remember, like, watching those matches and just being in awe. I was an Abyss fan. Like, I knew that he was the poor man's Mankind. I knew that, but he still could fly. And then when they brought...
I still insist the best tag team ever is Beer Money Incorporated, James Storm and Bobby Roode.
I don't know that I could argue with that. Although I will say America's Most Wanted, Chris Harris and James Storm kind of hold a special place in my heart. But either way, they knew what to do. And even in the beginning, like when they brought in Christian Cage and when they brought in Kurt Angle, it was like they seasoned it, but you still had the young guys that were like, I just saw a lot of potential until Jeff Jarrett decided that he was going to be champ every 5 minutes, which...
Guitar shots all day.
I was wondering if Cody was going to suffer from Jeff Jarrett syndrome, where he's like, I can book myself the champ. Let's do it.
I could see him booking himself as a champ every now and then, but like as like that heel champ who just ends up getting demolished by a face later on.
Well, and I saw what happened. Like, one thing I have to respect is at the New Japan, at the Wrestle Kingdom, I loved that all of them did the favor in a legitimate way. Like, Cody put Juice over. The Young Bucks put over, I forgot who they were wrestling.
Was
it Show and Yo?
G.O.D.
Oh, that's right.
And Sonata and Evil.
They put them over legitimately. They dropped to their finishers. They did legitimately. Even when it was the Nick Aldis thing, Cody wanted to win the title at All In, which made sense because of the event, but he dropped it back to Nick Aldis at NWA 70. And so, it seems like right now there are people that will do what's best for business. Do you think they'll get corrupted by, if AEW starts achieving success, do you think they'll get corrupted by it and start to fall into the trap that all wrestlers do so far that we've seen?
I don't think so. I think Cody, being around his father for so long, will have that acknowledgement of, hey, we can't let this happen or we're going to be WCW again. We can't let this happen or else we're going to fall by the wayside. We can't let this happen we need to push younger talent. We can't let our egos get in the way. And you can already see him pushing like some of that talent that's a little less known, like Joey Janela. Didn't know who the guy was until All In. Had no clue. But now I do, right? So I feel like they're already on the right track. I wouldn't be surprised if we hear some more like independent young guys getting signed. Like, I know definitely one guy I'd go after is Eli Drake.
Oh, my goodness.
Over an Impact. Just grab some young talent. Kaylee Ray. She'd be sensational.
I like that. I'll tell you what, All In made me a Hangman Page fan and a Marty Scurll fan because I knew of them and I saw highlights, but watching their matches,
Just shame Marty can't join them yet.
I know.
The last episode of Being the Elite was just sad.
I didn't see the last episode of Being the Elite.
And pretty much the way it ended was all the AEW guys leaving, and it was just him and Kenny. Kenny's like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And then he gets up and leaves too, and it's just Marty sitting all alone. You know that picture where they're all sitting in the chairs over at the TGI Fridays?
Yeah.
It's just him sitting in the chairs, and all the chairs next to him are empty with clearance signs.
Oh, sad times for Marty Scurll. No, I think that I'm excited to see what All Elite Wrestling does. Like, I'm renewed. I'll be honest. I started following, getting back into wrestling again, and I'll admit it wasn't the same as far as not having a legitimate number two. Like, you know, I tried to watch Impact, but it was hard to figure out what channel Pop was or what streaming service had Pop.
They're not even going to be on Pop towards.
Yeah, now they're going to be on like Twitch and the Pursuit channel or something, which is owned by. They're owned by the people that own Impact.
It's sad to see Impact fall by this wayside.
Now, if you were All Elite Wrestling and you take off, do you try to buy Impact?
Impact already tried to sell themselves to All Elite Wrestling, and they turned it down.
Wow. Goodness.
I wouldn't be surprised if they bought out some contracts like Eli Drake, Pentagon, Phoenix.
I could see Rich Swann. I think Rich Swann could have a renaissance if he.
Blanchard.
Oh my goodness. My dreams of the Tessa Blanchard partnering with Charlotte Flair, not going to happen. I don't.
Not going to happen, bud.
I know, right? No, so I think that we as wrestling fans are in. So tell me, Derek, the next time we're going to get together is 2 weeks from today to release. The next time next release will be in 2 weeks, right before the Royal Rumble. Sadly, I will be out of town. But we'll bring in some Rumble predictions. We'll talk a little bit, and we'll introduce you to the Belt Challenge, the DSC versus MG Belt Challenge.
And the current Universal Champion. I mean, that should show you who the real Shawn Michaels is. So.
You know what? There was nothing wrong with Marty. I'm sorry, I can't finish that sentence.
Marty Jannetty getting kicked through Windows 91.
I know. I can't even that's Marty Jannetty's greatest thing. And apparently, after I listened to the something to wrestle with about the Rockers, apparently getting fired and rehired like 17 times. No, I'm excited to see where this goes. But tell me, so what? In a couple weeks, we'll talk about the Rumble. We will unfortunately give the WWE its due, although the Rumble's one of my favorite events. But we'll talk about the Rumble, give some predictions, give some thoughts. Derek, I'm looking forward to seeing what you think should happen on the road to WrestleMania. I'd like to think that I'd be interested to do a should happen versus will happen, because I think they're going to be two incredibly different paths.
I think you're right. I think we already know what I feel should happen, but it'll be interesting to see what I have to say when the time comes. Another thing is that I will be at NXT TakeOver Phoenix and the Royal Rumble, meaning you can tune right in here to TBD, and there might be some video footage of me and my friend going about the Rumble.
That's awesome. We will be releasing information about the YouTube channel to get Derek's weekly updates. I'll tell you right now, Derek does a good job keeping his finger on the pulse. I do the best that I can, and I try to stay on top of things, but Derek is usually the one that's cluing me into things. So before we call it a day, a couple things I want to throw out there. First of all, one thing that we have not talked about, and you know where I stand, but I'm going to leave it for you to lead off. Who would you like to see be the announced teams? Because we heard the rumor JR was involved in the inception of it. Haven't heard anything since. who would you like to see as the announce team? Now, there are people under contract, like you're never going to get Michael Cole or whoever, but who would you like to see as the announce team?
Conrad Thompson,
Oh, that'd be amazing.
Tony Schiavone,
Oh,
and either Jim Ross or Kevin Kelly.
you would go with a three-man booth? Mm-hmm. Now, question for you. With Conrad Thompson, part of the reason, like, if you haven't listened to 83 Weeks, it's an incredible podcast, but Conrad Thompson's not afraid to call out crap when he sees it. Would you want Conrad to be Conrad, meaning that let's say hypothetically, because not all the angles are going to be winners, there's a preposterous angle. How would you as a wrestling fan feel, or as an owner of the company, as a wrestling fan, I'm sure how you'd feel, but also if you had a stake in the company, would you want Conrad to be Conrad, meaning he would make fun, call it out, call it crap, or would you want him to toe the company line a little bit? If you were a wrestling fan, how would you feel? And if you were an owner, how would you feel?
As a wrestling fan, I would find it amazing to hear somebody lay into a terrible segment, because his announcing would probably go along with what the crowd's thinking, feeling, and reacting, so it makes sense. Top of that, if I was the owner, I also wouldn't mind it, because having someone like Conrad Thompson would keep me on the straight and narrow and know what I need to do and what I shouldn't do. So say I book something horrendous and he's like, that's crap, right? I look at it and go, okay, Conrad thought it was bad, the fans thought it was bad, I didn't think it was the best idea either. How do we remedy this? And we can put together a solid solution to push the storyline forward instead of it being held back by yes men.
So could you see Conrad playing a role in creative, like being the voice of the fans?
Yes, I do.
Okay. I like that you said Tony Schiavone. I do have to bring up a rumor that I heard, and I forgot the name, and I apologize to whoever's Twitter handle released this. But there's a rumor that Dave Meltzer is an advisor. He's a consultant for AEW. He's not getting paid, so there's no conflict of interest. But that he is a consultant for AEW. For example, people are pointing to the fact that he announced that it was going to be a formality for Jericho to sign with New Japan Pro Wrestling, but here all of a sudden he said, yeah, it'll be a formality. All that they're working on is the numbers. But then you see Jericho show up at AEW. Also, when he was talking about different things that was going on, it seemed that a lot seemed to connect. And not to mention the Young Bucks finisher is called the Meltzer Driver. Do you think that that's just bitter Meltzer haters, or do you see some merit to that?
I can see some merit to that. I know Dave Meltzer gets a lot of insider information. I wouldn't be surprised if Young Bucks used his ties to the wrestling industry to kind of twist big signings. So you know how, like, we already knew that, like, Adam Cole was coming to the WWE. Like, it was obvious, right? I feel like they could use him in such a way where it'll make people go, well, I mean, I guess they could be going to WWE or New Japan, which will allow them to pull off a lot bigger surprises and get more ratings and numbers that way.
That makes a lot of sense. And you know what? Say what you will, but, you know, I understand why people would be upset with the dirt sheets, but I still enjoy reading them. The reason why I brought that up is because there was a segment where Brian Alvarez was talking about wrestling announcers he enjoyed. And Dave Meltzer said, as of right now, Tony Schiavone is the best wrestling announcer out there, that he's the easiest to listen to, and he's an actual wrestling announcer. He's not like Corey Graves, who's a personality trying to get over attitude. He's not, you know, Michael Cole, who's trying to just keep the ship from sinking.
I've been watching a few of the old WCW segments, and hearing Tony Schiavone speak, I'm like, yes, this is what announcers should be. You know what annoys me is listening to WWE and hearing, like, the corniest phrases coming from the announce booth and just going, leave me alone, I just want to watch my match. Like, the only one out of the entire announce teams, well, two that I can tolerate, is Renee Young.
Which they've practically, taken away everything good from her.
Mm-hmm. And I also like Mauro Ranallo because his reactions are so genuine.
Mauro Ranallo it's like a fan watching, like
if I could have my picture-perfect three-man team for AEW, it would be Mauro Ranallo, you have Tony Schiavone, and you have Renee Young. perfect.
I like that a lot. Mauro Ranallo, you showed me a YouTube video of Mauro Ranallo, and it was just him reacting and talking.
I would love to see the chemistry between him and Shivani.
Oh, I think it'd be great.
Because Shivani would be all calm, and then you'd have Mauro just like freak out. And Shivani would be like, it's okay.
I know that my favorite wrestling line, I know that Shivani gets crap for puts butts in the seats, but I loved it at Bash at the Beach 96 when he's like, Hulk Hogan, you can go to hell. Like, I remember when he said that, I was like, yeah, that's right, because I'm
Betrayed WCW.
Oh my gosh, no, no. So Derek, I think this was a good first show. What do you think?
I think it was almost like Goldberg's undefeated run.
Just don't tase me, bro. You're like, I've got it. We're just going to tase people. It's going to be amazing. So in 2 weeks, we'll talk about the Royal Rumble. We'll update on any All Elite Wrestling news. We'll give you information as it comes. But right now, what we would encourage you to do is, if you enjoyed this, subscribe wherever you pick up your podcasts. We are available on Google Play. We're available on Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Google Play. We're available on iHeartRadio, Stitcher.
YouTube at TBD Wrestling.
YouTube at TBD Wrestling. We're also working on getting picked up by Pandora. We'll give you more heads up on that. But anywhere that you get this podcast, subscribe. If you can rate us 5 stars, that would be huge. We'd love to see where this goes. We're hoping to be a podcast for the fans by people who, are just on the outside looking in. You probably get the same news that we do, but just having a chance to interact, and we would love to build it from here. So I'll tell you what, I'm gonna hand this over to DSC to close us out.
Yeah, like Mike said, you can find us wherever your podcasts are served, and keep in mind that we will be here for as long as we'll be here, but that's still to be determined.
This podcast is part of the Sequel Podcast Network.